Every woman has, at least once in her life, wondered what it truly takes to live rent-free in a man's mind. Not just for a fleeting moment, but to occupy a space he can't ignore even when he tries. The world is full of cliches, beauty, charm, seduction, but you already know that what really drives a man crazy isn't what most people think. It's something deeper, almost invisible, rooted in psychology. And when you understand this secret, you realize the women who truly haunt men do so without even trying. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, hinted at this mystery more than a century ago. He saw that the power women hold over men has almost nothing to do with appearance or even words. It's about energy, something primal, magnetic, and entirely subconscious. Let's break the first myth. Men are not captivated by perfection. The women who quietly drive them wild are rarely the most flawless, the most agreeable, or the most predictable. In fact, it's the opposite. These women leave an impression because they awaken a part of the masculine psyche that is hungry for depth and unpredictability. Jung would call this an encounter with the anima, the inner feminine, the mystery within every man that yearns for something it can't fully possess. When a woman activates this energy, she becomes unforgettable, not because she is always available, but because she remains slightly out of reach, always containing more than she reveals. But what does it look like in practice? Here's where most advice goes wrong. They tell women to play games, to withdraw affection, to act disinterested. But manipulation is transparent, and men sense it. The truth is, the most magnetic women don't perform for attention. They exist in their own orbit. They possess a subtle autonomy, a self-respect that is not negotiable, and a confidence that is rooted not in arrogance, but in inner knowing. This is not about pretending not to care. It's about genuinely caring for your own soul first. That energy, that rare refusal to make a man the center of your universe, creates a gravitational pull stronger than any tactic. Here's the first real secret. Women who drive men crazy never chase. They inspire pursuit, not by being cold, but by being deeply engaged with their own life. Jung taught that wholeness begins with individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, not an accessory to someone else's story. When a woman radiates this kind of self-possession, she stirs something ancient in a man. He finds himself drawn to her, often against his own logic, because she represents a mystery he cannot solve, a question he cannot answer. She is both an invitation and a challenge, both comfort and disruption. But why does this work? The answer lies in the deepest layers of the masculine psyche. Men are unconsciously searching for the unknown, something or someone that disrupts their ordinary patterns and makes them feel more alive. The magnetic woman triggers this need. She does not beg for affection, nor does she explain herself endlessly. Instead, her boundaries are clear. She says no without apology. She expresses desire without desperation. She can walk away without turning her back on herself. This strength, this capacity to stand alone, is what makes men return in their minds to her again and again, long after she has left the room. Of course, society often teaches women the opposite. You are told to be agreeable, to adapt, to prioritize the feelings of others. But the women who drive men crazy break this pattern. They aren't reckless or cruel. They simply refuse to abandon themselves for the sake of approval. They can be kind, loving, even nurturing, but never at the expense of their integrity. This is the difference between authentic power and performance. Jung believed that true attraction is never about control. It's about the meeting of two whole individuals, each holding their own center. If you're wondering how to embody this in your own life, it starts with self-awareness. Notice where you give yourself away, where you say yes when you mean no, where you shrink to fit someone else's expectations, where you become anxious if a man pulls away. These are the moments to reclaim your energy, to remember that real magnetism has nothing to do with pleasing and everything to do with being true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. And here's the part most women miss. The journey inward, the commitment to your own path, is what creates the space for true intimacy to grow. The women who drive men crazy are not obsessed with being chosen. They're obsessed with becoming. Every day, they're choosing themselves, building their world, nurturing their dreams. They do not wait by the phone, nor do they crumble if affection is withheld. They know that love is not something you earn by shrinking, but something you attract by expanding. So, if you've ever wondered why certain women haunt a man's thoughts long after they're gone, why he can't move on, why he finds himself drawn back, even against his own logic, this is the real reason. It's not about looks, status, or tactics. It's about the energy of a woman who refuses to betray herself for anyone. That is the mystery. That is the power. And that is what secretly drives men crazy. If you look closely, you'll notice something else about women who drive men crazy. They are comfortable with contradiction. They can be soft, but they can also be fierce. They can give warmth, but never at the price of self-betrayal. This paradox is what keeps them unpredictable. Jung believed that the psyche thrives on tension between opposites. Most people try to resolve this tension by choosing one side, being either agreeable or distant, nurturing or assertive. But the most magnetic women embrace both. They hold space for their vulnerability and their power, their longing and their limits, and they never apologize for the fullness of who they are. This is why a man, even when he tries to move on, finds himself circling back in his mind. He senses there's more to her than he could ever possess. The world is full of women who offer themselves completely, who shape themselves to fit what a man wants. But the women who stay in his memory are the ones who remain partly unknown, who are always growing, always a little beyond reach. This isn't about being deliberately mysterious or playing games. It's about genuinely living from a place of self-discovery, refusing to become static for anyone's comfort. Here's the next secret. These women aren't afraid to disappoint men. Not out of rudeness, but out of honesty. If something doesn't feel right, they say so. If a boundary is crossed, they enforce it, even if it means losing the connection. This willingness to risk rejection is rare, and it's precisely what makes them so attractive. Jung taught that what we fear in others is usually what we lack in ourselves. A woman's ability to stand firm in her truth awakens a man's longing to find that strength within himself. He may not understand it consciously, but he feels it, and it's irresistible. Consider the energy in the room when a woman like this is present. She doesn't dominate with noise or drama. Her power is quieter, deeper, a steady current that pulls attention without demanding it. She's not the loudest, the prettiest, or the most eager. Instead, she's the one who is fully present, comfortable in her own skin, uninterested in proving anything, simply being. This is what Jung called the numinous, a quality of energy that feels almost sacred, beyond explanation. Men sense it and are drawn to it, even if they can't put it into words. But this power comes at a cost. Living authentically means accepting loneliness sometimes. It means walking away from situations that many women would endure for the sake of security. It means being misunderstood, even criticized for not following the script. The world rewards those who conform, not those who challenge the norm. The women who drive men crazy have chosen a harder road, to honor their complexity, even when it makes others uncomfortable. This courage sets them apart, and it's a courage most men both envy and admire. You might wonder, how do you build this inner strength? Jung would say it starts with facing your shadow. Look at the parts of yourself you hide, your anger, your need, your longing for more. Don't judge these parts, integrate them. The more you accept yourself, the less you fear rejection from others. The more you honor your truth, the less you're willing to play small. Every time you choose yourself, even in tiny ways, you're building the muscle of authentic power. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. And this is the paradox that haunts men. The women they can't forget are never the ones who give everything away. They are the ones who hold something back, not out of manipulation, but out of reverence for themselves. They are open, but never emptied. They are loving, but never dependent. Their yes means something because their no is sacred too. In relationships, this shows up in unexpected ways. These women don't cling when a man pulls away. They don't panic when there's silence. They understand that connection ebbs and flows, and they trust themselves to weather those tides. If a man leaves, they grieve, but they do not collapse. If he returns, they welcome him, not as a savior, but as a companion on a journey where both must grow. Here's the next hook. When you stop trying to be what a man wants, you become what he needs, but could never admit. Jung believed that the unconscious is drawn to what completes it, not what flatters it. The magnetic woman, by refusing to betray herself, invites the man to meet her at a higher level. She challenges him to confront his own shadows, to step up, to become more whole. Not every man will rise to the challenge. Some will flee, calling her too much, too difficult, too independent. Let them go. The ones who stay, who are willing to meet you as an equal, are the only ones worthy of your time. So, if you're tired of being forgettable, tired of living by someone else's rules, ask yourself, where am I holding back my truth? Where am I settling for comfort instead of growth? The women who drive men crazy never settle for less than what they know deep down they deserve. Their power comes not from what they do for men, but from what they refuse to do to themselves. This is not an easy path. It's not glamorous. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's misunderstood. But in that space, in that fierce commitment to your own becoming, you will discover a magnetism no man can ever truly forget. The impact of such a woman lingers long after she leaves the room. For many men, she becomes the exception, the one that got away, the person who unsettles their comfortable narratives about love and desire. Even when life moves on, her energy remains like an echo. Friends notice he brings her up in conversation without meaning to. Songs remind him of her. Ordinary moments seem haunted by her memory. What is it about her that the world cannot explain, but the heart cannot ignore? This is the paradox most men never confess. It is not comfort that makes a woman unforgettable, but the subtle ache she leaves behind, a sense of unfinished business, an invitation to something more. Jung called this the numinous experience, when someone awakens something transcendent in us. For a man, meeting a woman with this rare magnetism often forces a reckoning with his own depths. He starts to question, am I living authentically? Do I have the courage to be as real as she is? Her presence acts like a catalyst, stirring the parts of himself he usually keeps hidden. Most men are not used to this. They are conditioned to seek out the predictable, the easy, the agreeable. They chase women who are available, flattering, eager to please, only to find, over time, that comfort quickly turns into boredom. The women who drive them crazy, on the other hand, refuse to become background music in anyone's life. They challenge, provoke, inspire, sometimes even frustrate. They are not chaos for chaos's sake, but clarity. In their honesty, they become a mirror, sometimes flattering, sometimes ruthless, but always true. But here's the part no one tells you. This kind of magnetism is not about games. It's not a calculated withdrawal, not a formula you can fake. Men are deeply attuned to authenticity, even if they can't articulate it. The woman who truly captivates does so because her boundaries are real, her no is honest, and her presence is never forced. She doesn't pretend to be indifferent. She simply refuses to make someone else's desire more important than her own needs. This is what men remember, the rare sensation of meeting someone who is both open and untamed. Many women, hearing this, worry that being strong will scare men away. And sometimes it does. But the men who flee were never ready for the real thing. Jung wrote that individuation, the journey to true adulthood, requires confronting one's fears and integrating the shadow. Not everyone will take this path. Some will blame the woman for their discomfort, calling her names or criticizing her boundaries. But the men who are awake, even a little, sense that she is not the problem. She is the lesson. In practice, her presence transforms the relationship dynamic. You may try to test her to see if she'll break, if she'll compromise for his approval. When she stands her ground, when she can say no and mean it, he feels both frustration and fascination. She is not unkind, but she is unwavering. If he tries to manipulate, she sees through it. If he withdraws, she does not chase. She can feel desire without losing self-respect. Her approval cannot be bought, only earned. This is the stage where most men reach a crossroads. They must either grow or retreat. The woman who drives men crazy acts as a threshold, the invitation to step into deeper waters or to turn back to the shallow end. Some will rise to the challenge, confronting their own insecurities and matching her honesty with their own. Others will retreat, blaming her for making them feel inadequate. She cannot and should not control which path they choose. Here's another secret. The magnetism of these women comes not only from what they bring, but from what they can live without. They do not fear solitude. They do not cling to relationships that cost them their soul. This detachment is not coldness, it's maturity. They have learned to be whole first, then to offer their wholeness as a gift, not as a bargaining chip. This is the essence of feminine power, as Jung saw it. Not the power to dominate, but the power to remain true, even when it's uncomfortable. If you're watching and thinking, I could never be like that, understand this. No one is born with this strength. It is forged in moments of loss, disappointment, and choosing oneself when it would be easier to disappear into someone else's dream. The magnetic woman is not immune to pain. She has simply chosen to let pain shape her rather than shrink her. And this is what drives men crazy. The knowledge that she is a free agent in her own life. That he cannot own, fix, or complete her. That her yes is a gift, not a surrender. Most men are not prepared for this kind of woman. But once they've met her, they cannot forget her. Her memory lingers not as a fantasy, but as a challenge, a reminder of what is possible if they too choose to become whole. So if you want to know the truth about what makes you unforgettable, ask yourself, are you willing to risk being misunderstood for the sake of being real? Are you willing to lose people who cannot meet you so you can find those who can? This is the test. This is the edge. And the women who pass it become the story a man tells himself every time he wonders what might have been. By now, the woman who has chosen this path understands something most never will. Her power is not in how many hearts she can capture, but in how many times she can choose herself, even when it costs her connection. She has discovered the paradox at the heart of attraction. What draws people in is not the hunger for approval, but the refusal to betray her own soul for the sake of being liked. This is not the path of least resistance. In fact, it's often the path of most resistance. Friends misunderstand, society pushes back, lovers sometimes walk away. But the woman who truly drives men crazy is willing to let go of what isn't real, even if it means walking alone for a while. Inside, this journey transforms her. She no longer fears her own complexity. Her contradictions become her signature. She can be nurturing and fierce, gentle and firm, open and discerning. She accepts that her needs matter as much as anyone else's, and she does not apologize for them. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires embracing every part of oneself, not just the parts the world finds acceptable. The magnetic woman is not perfect, but she is real. She owns her anger, her longing, her laughter, and her boundaries with equal honesty. And this is the very thing men cannot forget, because it awakens in them a longing for their own wholeness. At the same time, her presence in a man's life is like an emotional earthquake. He may not understand it at first. He may even resent the way she makes him feel, unsettled, exposed, no longer able to hide behind old habits or shallow charm. But somewhere inside, he knows this is different. She is not here to complete him, but to challenge him, to make him question why he accepts so little from himself, why he settles for roles and routines that deaden his spirit. Her refusal to shrink invites him, if he's willing, to expand. Of course, not every man will answer this invitation. Some will run, blaming her for the discomfort she triggers. Others will try to control or change her, mistaking her autonomy for a threat. But the rare ones, the ones ready to grow, will be inspired by her authenticity. They will see her as a mirror, reflecting back both their light and their shadow. In the presence of a woman who has claimed her wholeness, a man faces a choice: evolve or retreat. And even if he chooses to walk away, he will never again be satisfied by anything less than what she offered, a relationship that honors truth over comfort. This is why her memory lingers. It's not just about love, sex, or attention. It's about the way she made him feel alive, awake, called to something higher. He remembers her not as a fantasy, but as a wake-up call. Every future connection is measured against the standard she set, not with rules or ultimatums, but with the clarity of her self-respect. He may try to forget, to replace, to move on, but deep down he knows she was a turning point. She was proof that real intimacy requires real courage, and that love without authenticity is just another transaction. Meanwhile, the magnetic woman does not wait by the phone or pine for those who cannot meet her. She grieves losses. Yes, she's human, but she never abandons herself. Her path is forward, deeper into her own becoming. She knows now that her worth is not determined by who stays or goes, but by the fidelity she has to her own soul. She continues to grow, to create, to nurture the world around her, not out of emptiness, but out of overflow. This is what makes her irreplaceable. Her love is never about filling a void, but about sharing abundance. And here's another truth few will admit. Her strength is not the absence of fear or longing. She feels everything, sometimes more than she'd like. But instead of running from her feelings, she lets them move through her, trusting that even the hardest emotions are teachers. This emotional honesty, this willingness to stay present with herself, becomes her deepest source of magnetism. Men sense it. She will not abandon herself for anyone. And in her presence, they must confront whether they are willing to do the same. For women watching, The lesson is both sobering and liberating. You cannot fake this energy. It is not about learning tricks or copying behavior. It is about doing the hard, internal work of meeting yourself day after day with radical honesty. It is about setting boundaries, not as weapons, but as invitations for others to meet you where you truly are. It is about loving, not to earn love in return, but to express the fullness of who you are, whether or not it is ever fully received. And for the men who encounter her, whether for a season or a lifetime, she becomes the story that changes everything. Not because she played games, but because she played for keeps with herself first and always. So if you're still wondering how some women live forever in a man's mind, remember, it's not about what you give him, but about what you refuse to give away to anyone but yourself. By the time a woman has truly claimed this energy, she's crossed a threshold few ever dare to approach. She no longer seeks answers from others about her worth. The approval, attention, and even love of men are welcome, but they are not her source. She has learned, often the hard way, that no amount of outside validation can replace the inner peace that comes from living honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. She is now the woman who quietly commands respect without asking for it, who enters a room and changes its atmosphere just by being fully herself. For men, her impact is lasting and not always easy to process. Some may feel frustrated, even angry, at how she upends their old patterns. Others find themselves reflecting, sometimes for the first time, on their own limits, desires, and fears. A rare few will rise to meet her, recognizing in her not just a partner, but a mirror reflecting their own potential for wholeness. Jung understood that the people who challenge us the most are often the greatest catalysts for our own growth. The magnetic woman, by refusing to be anyone but herself, becomes that catalyst, whether or not a man ever says it aloud. And for the woman herself, the world takes on a new flavor. She is not immune to longing or loneliness. These are part of being alive. But now, she is no longer afraid of emptiness. She knows it is the ground from which real fulfillment grows. She moves through life with intention, saying yes when it's true and no when it's not, refusing to make choices from fear. Her relationships, friendships, and work all reflect her commitment to authenticity. She has stopped apologizing for her boundaries, her needs, her dreams. This is what men remember long after the last conversation or the final goodbye. The memory of a woman who did not collapse to fit their expectations, who brought her whole self into every interaction, and who left them changed, sometimes shaken, sometimes awakened, but always moved. Even if he tries to forget, the lesson lingers. Real connection cannot be forced, and true attraction is always an invitation, never a transaction. For women watching, this is your permission to stop shrinking. You don't have to become cold or distant to be magnetic. You simply have to become real. To let yourself be messy, complicated, fierce, gentle, and honest. To let your no be as sacred as your yes. To refuse relationships, jobs, or roles that require you to leave parts of yourself behind. It's a difficult path, sometimes lonely, always demanding. But the reward is the kind of presence that cannot be ignored or forgotten. And for men, this is your invitation. When you meet a woman like this, don't try to possess her. Don't shrink her to fit an old story. Let her challenge you. Let her unsettle you. Let her inspire you to find the places where you have settled for comfort instead of truth. If you can rise to that, if you can bring your own wholeness to the table, then what grows between you will be unlike anything you've known before. The world will always try to convince us that love is a game of scarcity, a negotiation of power. But the deepest connections are born from abundance, from the willingness to be whole, even in the face of rejection or loss. This is the legacy of the magnetic woman. Not just the hearts she's touched, but the lives she's changed by never settling for less than what is true. So if you've ever wondered why certain women haunt a man's memory, why he can't let go, why he measures all others by her standard, it's not magic. It's not manipulation. It's the energy of someone who has chosen herself again and again until her presence becomes unforgettable. She is the reminder that we are all meant to be more than what the world expects. She is proof that authenticity, above all else, is the greatest source of attraction. And that, in the end, is the real secret. Women who do this, who honor their truth, who refuse to trade their souls for approval, who choose wholeness over comfort, don't just drive men crazy. They wake them up.